Every one of us in Deadlock has these moments where you just kind of want to ignore your team the entire game. Where you want to sit in jungle for 20 minutes, AFK farm, and then come out of jungle and 1v6 the entire enemy team. And today we're gonna talk all about Victor, how the character works, how to play him, how the abilities function, and some secret tech. So friends, this is Metro, and today we're gonna talk all about Victor. Victor is a carry and tank hybrid character. He's pretty good in lane, but falls off massively in the mid game and needs a lot of money to get online. But he becomes the strongest character in the game in the late game and is very strong in team fights. He really benefits from vitality items and spirit items, also does amazing gun damage, but we'll get into that in a bit. Victor's entire kit is built around the idea that you do more damage to yourself so you can do more damage to the enemy. The entire kit basically revolves around his 3 ability called Aura of Suffering. When you activate this ability, you do damage over time in a radius around you, but you will also do damage to yourself, okay? So the longer you have this on, the more damage you will deal to the enemy, but the more damage you will also take yourself. And this scales very, very well into the late game, especially when you level it up. And in combination with that, you have the very basic first ability, which is called Pain Battery. Pain Battery is a very interesting mechanic. It's the only ability in Deadlock that only charges when you take damage, okay? Every other ability in the game has a cooldown or like some sort of charges. Pain Battery will not charge by itself, it only charges when you take damage. But it is very easy to take damage with Victor, obviously, right? And then the 2 ability is called a Jumpstart, a pretty complex ability. It seems very simple. When you read it, it heals you, but before it heals you, it takes a percentage of your current health and then it heals you back, and it has very high spirit scaling. And then the ultimate is just a second life, basically, right? You die, there's gonna be an aura around you, and when you die, it takes a second or two, and you pop back out with 60% health on base level. You stun the enemies around you, and after that you will deal a bit more damage to the enemy, depending on when you level this ability up. But spoilers, the ult is actually not what we want to play around. It's more so a safety backup for the general playstyle of Victor. And I really want this to be a general guide, so I will cover everything, but you have to keep in mind, the playstyle of Victor right now is really revolving around the fact that he is very, very strong late game. Let's get into the abilities a bit more specifically. As I mentioned, Pain Battery charges when you take damage. If you level it up, it does more damage. On level 2, it applies slow to the enemy. And a major power spike for Victor is when you max this ability, which heals you for 20% of your current missing health when you hit an enemy, okay? And this is going to come down very handy later in the game. The main early power spike we're gonna get on Victor and the way we're building Victor is Jumpstart. On base level, really doesn't heal much. Right now I'm on 520 HP, and if I were to proc this, as you notice, I gained like an overall like around 20-25 HP. So you might think this is really not worth it at all, but since we are putting 2 points into this pretty early in laning stage, once you have it on level 2, it will heal more. And it also has insane spirit scaling, so once we get some items that give us more spirit, the healing portion of the ability is going to be way higher than the damage we actually take. Also, notice how it says 50% of current health. So, what this means is, Jumpstart is better the lower you are in HP, right? Even if I'm basically 0, right, and I'm like super low HP, I can proc this. And it took like no HP of mine, right? Because 15% of 10 is like, what, 1.5 HP, but I gained the full health back. So this is a thing a lot of people seem to misunderstand, especially when they're new to the character or new to, you know, playing around Victor. You want to really delay your jump starts until you're like around half HP, and then the lower you are, the more valuable it becomes to use this, okay? Obviously, Aura of Suffering, again, the maximum duration or the maximum damage is achieved after 10 seconds. So at 10 seconds, you do max damage to yourself and the enemy. And then when you level it up, it also will slow the enemy in a radius, and it will increase the minimum maximum damage. And on the very high level, enemies will take 13% more damage. But compared to the other abilities, Pain Battery and Jumpstart, this is not super useful, especially early on. I explain to you why in a second. And then the ultimate gives some bonuses that seem very nice on paper, But when you get into the game and once you use reality, you will realize they're not actually that strong, right? So on revive, it makes it so you do more damage with your gun, spirit damage, and you gain more fire rate. And then on level 2, you gain back to 100% health. And then on level 3, the radius of the ult increases and the damage increases. Especially this final point is very weak to level up, and it's the thing we're gonna level at the very end of the game, if we even get to there. When you die, there's enough time for the enemy to usually get out of the radius, even if you max it out to max level. There's enough time for the enemy to get out of the radius so they won't take the stun and the damage, okay? So you can't rely on it, and it's kind of a wasted point. I'm gonna talk about how to skill the abilities first, and then we'll talk about items and actually how to play the character. At base, Victor is actually pretty good in lane. He has pretty decent base regen, and because we can spam jumpstart, it has a pretty short cooldown, especially when we get extra charge and get more charges on it. Because we can spam this, it's gonna be pretty easy for us to stay alive in lane, okay? So what I do usually when I get into the lane, I just skill Pain Battery first, because usually in the first level or 2, I don't really need the healing. So I skill Pain Battery and I get 1 point in Pain Battery to increase the damage. By the way, I want to mention this now. Everything I mention in this video, if you want to follow along, if you want to look at the build is posted in-game as Metro Victor Reborn, and I'll also post the build ID in the comments. We get 1 point in Pain Battery, and then we really start leveling Jumpstart. And it's really essential for us to get 2 points in here early, because the second point is going to make it so we really heal a lot in lane. And we're going to combine this with the first few items we're going to buy. Monster rounds I've talked about a lot in other guides, and if you don't know by now, this is one of the 2 great options early to win the lane. Monster rounds allows us to push the enemy creep wave faster, putting more pressure on the enemy side, on the enemy guardian, and allowing us to spend more time shooting the enemy, okay? So we usually buy monster rounds first. If you need to, and you're lacking regen, you can also go for extra spirit or improved spirit first. And the reason we're running improved spirit right after is, again, this gives us a really big spike in spirit power early on, right? So we're gonna go from 0 to basically 29 by just having improved spirit, because we're getting 18 from improved spirit and we're getting 11 from the spirit investment. And what this is gonna allow us to do is it's gonna increase our healing on the jumpstart by quite a lot, right? Because the scaling on the healing of jumpstart is times 1.8 our spirit power. So yeah, this is what we buy. And the way we play the lane basically is Victor is actually very solid in lane, okay? We push enemy creeps, and then we start harassing the enemy player. What you don't want to do is use a lot of Aura of Suffering early. This ability really only comes into play in the mid game or later mid game. Because before then, because you're taking so much damage, you will probably kill yourself before you kill the enemy. Because the radius is pretty small, right? So if you try to like use this in lane and the enemy stays barely out of it, you will be dead in like, you notice how fast my health is ticking down. You will be dead before you can probably deal damage to the enemy. Which is why we're getting this ability third. And we're not really putting points into this until we have 2 points in Jumpstart. And then we get 1 value point in Aura of Suffering because it's cheap and this allows us to slow the enemy down by 30%. So if the enemy is diving you and they are fighting you, you can proc this Aura of Suffering for a second in the lane or in the mid game and just, you know, make sure they don't escape, right? Make sure they can't be slowed down. But again, especially in the early game, we want to use this aura sparingly. How do we actually make use of it if it kills us instantly? We are going to go for early Spirit Resilience. This item is actually quite bad on most characters and it's not really bought a lot, but it's great for Victor because this gives us Spirit Resist and especially a lot of Spirit Resist once we're below 30% health. And remember, this synergizes really well with Victor because we do want to be low health, right? Because the lower health we are, the more Jumpstart is actually going to heal us. And that's going to be one of our 2 farming methods, okay? Because after lane, spoilers, Victor actually does not do a lot of damage, okay? At base level, he does not do a lot of gun damage. And at base level, again, we can't really use Aura of Suffering. So the only high damage burst we have in lane is Pain Battery. And Pain Battery is obviously directly correlated to how much damage the enemy is dealing to us, right? So there's going to be a limited amount of damage we can put out. But again, still a great laner because we can live for so long, right? And once we get this improved spirit and once we get extra charge, we will have basically enough health in lane to never die, right? Even if we drop low, we can use this, heal back, right? And then a few seconds later, if we need it again, we can use it again. But again, I just want you to think of the ultimate as a second life and not anything else. You definitely do not want to suicide into the enemy just to try to stun them, because a good player will stay away from you after, or, you know, they will burst you down right away again. So it's basically just a safety backup for a second life, okay? So, and after we get a point in Aura of Suffering, we're gonna go and max jumpstart. And this is our first major power spike. Because what this does is, it lowers our cooldown of the ability by quite a bit, 4 seconds. And if you cast it, it purges non-ultimate abilities, debuffs. So what does this mean? This is a free debuff remover, and we'll have this at least 2 times, and later down the line when we get rapid recharge, we'll have it more than 2 times, we'll have it 3 times. And because the cooldown is so low, we can spam this. And this can remove, you know, everything in the game. And that's what makes Victor so strong. You can use it to remove Infernus Burn, you can use it to remove Bebop Bombs, you can use it to remove a 7 stun. Basically, yeah, just like a debuff remover. And this is how we play around, and this is how we stay alive in the mid game. And the reason I say stay alive and not say kill the enemy is because Victor really needs the most money out of any character in this game to become strong. We need the spirit resilience, and then we need survivability or damage items to finally deal damage. And I guess this is where I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. Because some of you that have been watching this were probably like, wait, I thought Victor is a pure green and spirit character, right? And a lot of you might play him that way. The issue with that playstyle, and the reason people are moving more and more away from it, is because Aura of Suffering had multiple nerfs, and it's a very small radius, and people are getting good enough to where they just stay out of your radius, right? There's multiple movement abilities in the game that allow people to just stay away from you. And when people stay away from you, all you're gonna do is damage yourself, slow yourself down, and not really slow or damage the enemy, okay? If I run into a Lash, they're just gonna jump, you know, they're just gonna jump away from me. If I run into Infernus, they're just gonna dash away from me, right? And a lot of characters have enough movement speed to where they can just, like, dash away from you and stay out of your radius, right? And there's a lot of verticality. A lot of characters that are meta right now are movement characters. Pocket, Mina, right? They can all stay far enough away from you where you can't really deal damage, especially early on. Later on, we'll have a way to stay at their ass, right? But early on, we can't. So until then, until we get movement speed or until we slow the enemy down more, we have to accept the fact that we can only really use Aura of Suffering if they're melee range, then we can put it on, or to farm creeps. And that's like the main thing we want to do with this character, okay? So after we get Healing Booster, which is a no-brainer because it's going to heal us even more, make us more survivable, and a bit of extra magazine because we're upgrading to escalating resilience center, we get Cultist. And I really think this item is amazing on Victor. I've spent the entire day today on stream verifying that this build is the best. And I know if you watched a few videos ago where I went over the best build per character, I recommended ADLs, which is pretty close to what I'm running. I'm just running a bit more gun items. But I looked into Cultist, and this item is just a no-brainer for this character because it allows us to farm fast in the early game. It allows us to do more damage to creeps early game, and it also gives us range. And radius is really good because it increases the radius of our 3 ability, okay? So what you want to do is you want to try to play the lane and ideally get Cultist at 8 minutes. And as soon as it hits the 8-minute mark and you have Cultist, you sack the first tier 3 creep you see on the map, okay? And that's going to give you a nice jump start to your next item, which is going to be Spirit Resilience, which is our other farming item. Now we can start using Aura of Suffering to farm, and I'll just show you why, right? Before this, we die very fast. Let's assume we are at 8k, right? Like net worth right now, we're still pretty early in the game, and I activate Aura of Suffering. And I'm gonna try to farm this camp here, just to show you, right? What's gonna end up happening is, you might be able to clear like 1 or maybe 2 of them, but now the damage starts to add up so quickly, I'm even gonna use healing, that suddenly I'm 1 HP after I, you know, finish one creep camp. which is obviously not great, right? Because now I have to go back to base or I have to play very safe. But if I do the exact same thing again, but I buy Spirit Resilience, so if I do this again here, and I know I could do this more efficiently if I used my Pain Battery, right, which I can use sometimes, you will just notice, as soon as I get like to 1/3, look how slow my health is draining all of a sudden, right? So this is really the sweet spot for Victor. And then I still have healing, you know, and this is crazy, right? Like now I died. So my point is, this is the item that allows us to farm creeps efficiently. And the reason, again, we want to farm creeps a lot, and the reason we're great at jungling or sitting on the side lane and then rotating from side lane to jungle is we need the money. We need more money to get online, and once we get our core ready, we want to fight. That does not mean you don't want to fight at all on Victor. If there's an important team fight and you have ult up, you can very easily join. Just know that you won't really do that much damage, right? It doesn't matter what build you go for, by the way. Even if you go full spirit or full vitality, you just won't do damage, because the gun at base does very low damage. And again, the aura at base does very low damage. And the reason I like going gun over this full spirit and full vitality build is because later down the line, I want to be able to kill people that are not melee range to me, right? And I want to be able to sustain from people that are not melee range to me. And that's why we're running more gun items. But once you have Cultist and Spirit Resilience ready, you're gonna kill creep waves really fast because you do more damage to creeps with the gun, and you're also gonna be able to kill jungle camps really efficiently. And then we go into Intensifying Magazine, and this is because Victor at base has a pretty, I don't want to say low fire rate, but it is a pretty big magazine, right? So you will almost always get the full value out of Intensifying. It's gonna stay active for a while you're shooting. And it's just gonna up our gun damage a bit more. And then we go Rapid Recharge, and at that point we have 3 charges of our debuff Ultra Heal, right? And at this point we're at 15k, and we're already healing basically 350 HP. I don't want to lie, let me level up to 15k. Yeah, at this point we're healing 350 from every time we click Jumpstart, which is crazy, obviously. And we can spam this now because we have Rapid Recharge. So if we need to, we can spam this every 4 seconds. But at this point, again, you're still weak. We're still playing passive. If you see opportunities, you do want to split push, maybe go attack a walker if you have ult up, right? With ult, we're pretty safe. We have 2 lives. We can get away with more. But especially if you lose your ult, if you don't have ult up, just stay safe and farm on your map. And I'm not going to lie to you. If you don't enjoy the jungle farming playstyle, this is not the character for you, right? If you want to participate in a lot of early mid-game fights, Victor is not the character for you. This is the most passive, I want to say, character in the game. Even more so than Seven or Wraith, where both of those characters also need a lot of farm to get online, but at least they have abilities that can help pretty well in team fights early on, right? Whereas Victor really doesn't. And then we go Fleetfoot, and this is like our first step to becoming the monster we are, where now we can like keep up with the enemy, and we can use Fleetfoot to stay close to the enemy, and we can use it to chase, right? But we can also obviously use it to damage an enemy while not losing movement speed, right? Which plays really well into a gun, right? So it synergizes really well with the gun build. And then we go into one of the best items in the game for Victor, which is Berserk. And this is a no-brainer, because if you look at Berserk, right, the point is the lower you are, the more damage you take, the more damage you deal. But because Victor damages himself, both the 2 and the 3 will actually activate Berserk. Because the 2 also counts as self damage, right? So by me just pressing Jumpstart twice, I'm still full health, but I have Berserk stacks, right? And obviously if I have the aura on, we're gonna get more and more stacks on Berserk. So basically what I'm saying is, the way you want to read Berserk on this character is it's just 70% more weapon and melee damage at all times, because you're always gonna take damage. And the reason I'm running Escalating Resilience and not Bullet Resilience, I've done testing on both. We really like the extra ammo, and the weapon damage does help. So it just feels nicer. And if I go up against really heavy gun comps, I tend to buy both even, right? But we're buying Escalating Resilience because it's just an upgrade from Extended Magazine. The next 3 points we can talk about, it's very simple. Once we max Jumpstart, we then end up maxing Pain Battery. And this is our second major power spike, and this is now when we can really start fighting. Because now we have, you know, we damage ourselves, and then if we get low, which, you know, at this point it's gonna take a while to get low, we can heal ourselves by just hitting a 1 on an enemy hero. Right, so that's healing. Right, and because we always take damage, the pain battery is basically gonna perma recharge, right? So we can heal from the 1, and then we can heal from the 2. All the meanwhile, we have Berserk up, we have Cultist Fire Rate, if I had it all active right now, right? So that's like kind of the entire playstyle. We try to stay below half on Victor, and we try to stay close to the enemy. But there will be situations where the enemy will get out of your aura. And this is where this build really shines. Because what a lot of people don't realize is, Victor has the 6th best highest gun scaling in the game. So, when Victor is the closer Victor gets to max level, the more damage his gun is gonna do, okay? It starts off really weak, but it becomes top 6 in the game, in the end game, okay? And Victor is a late game carry character that wants to get to the late game. We can start dealing really, really solid gun damage on medium and long distance. And this gun starts hitting like a truck. But we're still not there yet, okay? At this point, it's still not enough. At 22k, I would say like Wraith and 7 might be online and they can fight a lot. But we need 2 more items. 2 more items and the game is over, okay? But then the game is truly over. If you get these next 2 items and your team is not like more than 10k behind, you should win if you played properly. Because after you have these 2 items, you're basically unkillable. And that is Leech and E-Shift. We just benefit more from Leech because we're gonna heal from our aura, right? From everyone around us that is sitting in the aura. And we're gonna also heal from our bullets, right? And this is especially amazing if once multiple enemies start being around us. Where we go in, and because we do so much damage to everything, I can just show you like the amount of healing you can achieve from this. It is absolutely crazy. Especially once we like start also including the pain battery. we heal more than we take damage from our own aura. And that's where E-Shift comes into play. And this is the best item in the game for Victor. On any build, even if you want to run full spirit. E-Shift basically takes you out of reality for 5 seconds, okay? And, 4 seconds. And during that time, you can't be targeted by anything. The catch on Victor is, you can do this while your Aura of Suffering is online. So you can run in, right? And when you realize you're low, okay? When you realize you're about to die, or when you want to dodge an important ultimate, you go in and you just E-Shift. And the aura is gonna stay active. Because you are in E-Shift, you won't take any damage. So all you will receive is the healing around you, okay? So this item is absolutely batshit crazy on Victor. After we max our pain battery, we then max aura. Because now we are so tanky, we can afford to take even more damage ourselves, because we will deal even more damage to the enemy. So in this build, I'm ignoring the ult completely. If you really want to, you can put 1 or 2 points in the ult for, quality of life. It's nice if you're resurrected to start at 100 health, but in reality, right, I'll just show this off. If you die, it doesn't really matter that you spawn with 60% HP, because all you have to do is press 1 jump start, right? And you're basically back to full anyways. So, you know, for like the average beginner player in Deadlock, 60% to 100% health sounds like a lot. And on every other character it is, but on Victor, 60% is 100%, right? On Victor, there's either dead or alive. The health itself doesn't matter, okay? I've had multiple fights where I'm literally just sitting at like 1/3 health permanently, but because I have so much resistance, right? Both bullet and spirit resistance, and I have so much lifesteal with Leech while I shoot, while the aura is on, that I just can't die anymore, right? There's so many ways with this character to heal himself. At that point, you should be able to 1v6 if you do it properly. And the key to winning 1v6 is do not be scared. Like, go into the enemy, especially if you have ult, go in and fight close range. The worst thing you could do, let's say worst case scenario, you proc aura on long range while you're like low and you run away, right? And you forget to turn the aura off. And this is where you can actually die, right? Because you have the aura on and you're like running away. And all you have to do, even if you're low, again, you have jumpstart and you can cleanse stuns, so don't be scared of that, okay? You go in and you press your buttons, right? You use your pain battery on an enemy whenever it's up, and you keep your aura on. And if you want to dodge anything else, or you're in a really tricky situation, you activate your E-shift. So you are a tank, right? I just want to mention that. You are the strongest character in the game late game. Like you do the most damage, but you're also the most tanky. Which reminds me of some scenarios where Victor is really good. So what is Victor really good at? One, once you get to like that major power spike, you can very easily push any objectives. Because objectives will also take damage from your aura, which means they will also heal you, okay? So you can run under a walker, literally, and get stunned, it doesn't matter. Your aura is on, it's gonna damage the walker, it's gonna heal you. And if any enemies are close, it's gonna heal you more, right? You're amazing to contest mid-boss and win mid-boss fights in. If the enemy does mid-boss, and you're like close with your team, you come in, you activate Aura Suffering, and you just run into them. You want to stay as close to the enemy as possible at all times. Now, if you're having trouble keeping up with the enemy at this point in time, like if they still get away from you, a few tips. Remember that Jumpstart actually does give you movement speed, okay? So Jumpstart will help you catch up with the enemy. Sometimes you can use Jumpstart offensively, even if you don't need a lot of healing, to just keep on chasing the enemy. And another thing I do is, after E-Shift, I buy Healing Tempo, which is going to increase our movement speed even further. Because when we heal with either the 1 or the 2, or Leech, or whatever, Healing Tempo is going to proc basically instantly, right? So we get the Healing Tempo fire rate, which is going to up our gun damage even more. Plus we get this insane movement speed increase, where it's going to be really easy for us now to stay on the enemy, right? With this item. Okay. And then, you know, depending on what you want to do, you can upgrade your Boundless, your Improve to Boundless to get even more healing at this point. If we get to that net worth, which is not uncommon for Victor, right? Like, a lot of games, you get to that level of souls. At this point, we heal like 600 per heal on Jumpstart. And our aura does like a ridiculous amount of damage. 300 DPS a second on max level, right? And yeah, I mean, at that point, you should have won the game. Now, other items you can buy in the late game that are really nice upgrades. Transcendent cooldown at this point is insane value. Because if you have the money, right, if you're that rich, it's gonna reduce your E-Shift cooldown to 14 seconds. And because E-Shift lasts for 4 seconds, that means you can use E-Shift basically every 10 seconds. So at that point, there should be no way the enemy can kill you anymore. It's also gonna mean that our cultist is gonna be up basically the entire time because it reduces the cooldown of cultist. And we get our ult faster, right? We get our pain batteries faster, they charge faster. And we get our charges faster as well at this point. So let me just show you the cooldowns. It is really, really low. Even if we used up all the Jumpstart charges, right? I get them back insanely fast. And notice how spammable this is, right? You know, now, after using 4, there's like a 10-second cooldown. But that's like the cooldowns on everything are gonna be insanely fast. And then we can get Siphon, right? If you want even more health. Just for fun. Or something like Juggernaut to move even faster. And then there's like, again, there's some situational items, but usually this is enough, right? And usually at this, like, once I have these items, usually the game should be over at this point. Like, I can't even, like, buy all of them, right? If I wanted to. But yeah, I mean, at 60k, the game should be over. In other things, like what, the question that always comes up in all my builds, or in all my hero guides is, what should I sell? So I'll just go over like a real life example, okay? This build is pretty slot efficient, I want to say, but basically it comes down to sell the cheapest stuff first, right? So let's say you get into the game. Up until Fleetfoot, you don't need a single flex slot, right? That's already 16k. At this point, you should have a flex slot, okay? And then you still don't need another flex slot for escalating. And yeah, if you get to Leech and you somehow don't have a flex slot, you can sell something like Intensifying Magazine, right? If you really have to. I usually never do this because at this point I should have the slot. But yeah, once you get to E-Shift, sell Intensifying Magazine. And then both Boundless and Healing Tempo are upgrades. So notice how we basically have the entire build ready with 43k and we don't even need all the flex slots, right? So this is what I mean. In this build in specific, we don't really have to worry about flex slots much. Just to reiterate on how to play a fight on Victor once you start fighting. Make sure to always keep an eye on your pain battery. the more you spam this, the more useful it will be, right? And you will get this back very fast because you will take a lot of damage and you will deal a lot of damage to yourself. And again, every time you hit this on an enemy, right, you will get a massive amount of healing and good damage on the enemy. So you really want to try to make sure to use the one whenever it's up. Okay, so it's kind of like Wraith cards in that sense. It's very close to Wraith cards where you just kind of can spam the button, right? Like I fight and then I, you know, when I know it's about to be up, I just spam. I don't even look at the icon. I just spam it because I know it's going to be up soon. So I can hit it immediately. So that's number 1 tip. Number 2 tip. Once you use Aura of Suffering, it will be on a cooldown, right? So if you know you can tank and you know you're really tanky, you can start proccing this early, right? Before you come around the corner to catch someone, because then by the time you get there, you already have a lot of charge on Aura, which is going to kill the enemy faster, right? You can proc Aura of Suffering early. And I would say one of the skill ceilings of this hero is actually figuring out when to use this and when to not use it. If you're really low and you're really scared of dying, right, then until the very late game, there is actually a point to turn Aura of Suffering off. But this can also backfire, right? Because let's say you're low and you turn it off, right? If you E-shift then, you cannot turn on the aura while in E-shift, right? So you want to make sure that you use E-shift when the aura is on, right? So you want to wait until you're like kind of low, have your aura on, and then you press E-shift, okay? So you want to make sure your aura is on while E-shift is active to get the full value out of E-shift. And again, for the two, main thing is don't use this at all until you get to like half HP. Or if you want to cleanse a stun, right? Like if you go into a fight with like full HP and the enemy starts with like a 7 stun on you, of course you use this even with full HP to just remove the stun, right? But otherwise, if you want to use your jumpstart for healing purposes, as a rule of thumb, don't use it until you're low HP. In some scenarios where you want to get out really fast, right? Let's say you're getting ganked. Let's say you were farming a creep camp and 2 enemies jump you. You can spam this early, right? Just to run away faster, right? So you can proc your fleet foot and you can proc your jumpstart just to get more movement speed to get out faster, okay? That's another scenario where I would say you can use it early, but otherwise in fights, if you want to use it for healing purposes, below half health. And again, sometimes you can proc aura to just slow the enemy down. And remember, even without the aura, especially in this build, you will deal a lot of gun damage. If you don't like this, you can also run this build and skip extended magazine and just go for bullet resilience. This is completely fine. And what I forget to mention, and what I will fix here is, a lot of the time, and once you go in game and you see this build, a lot of the time I run an earlier Spirit Lifesteal. Because this also actually helps and it upgrades into Leech, which we'll buy later anyways, right? So a lot of the time I get earlier Spirit Lifesteal, and if you want to, you can get it right after a Spirit Resilience, right? You can buy a Spirit Lifesteal really early to sustain longer in the jungle. But the reason I don't do it is I'd rather have more charges of my heal and a bit more damage to clear creep camps faster than having this lifesteal, because I'm not going to fight much until I want to anyways, right? That's about it for Victor. He's really not a super complex character to get into, but I think especially learning how the fights work with him will take some time, and I think he benefits greatly from having great macro awareness and being able to farm efficiently. And for that, if you're not sure to do that, make sure to check out my macro guide that I released like a few days ago. Let me know if you have any questions, let me know if I missed anything. Coming up, 7 and Wraith are gonna be next for hero tutorials. Let me know what other heroes you wanna see, or what videos you wanna see. I'm really trying to get more videos out that you guys wanna see, so if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments. I hope that was helpful. Until next time, see you friends, bye bye.